14 years ago, a little Goldendoodle came into our life, and I had no idea just how much he would change it. If you've followed me or been here for any length of time, you know Badger isn't just our dog. He's been part of our family, part of our business, part of this community. And I have had so many people reach out and ask me over the last few years, how is Badger? What are you doing for him? Can you share his story? And for a long time, I kept saying, yes, absolutely, when I get the time. But here's the truth. It wasn't about time. I simply wasn't ready, because telling this story meant reliving one of the hardest seasons that we've ever walked through. And so today I am finally coming to the mic and sharing Badger's story for all of you that have been asking. And so I talked a little bit about who Badger is. He is our 14-year-old standard Goldendoodle, and how Badger came into our family is very divine. And so one of the things that Justin said to me when he took me out to dinner and wanted me to quit my corporate job at the time to come and work inside of the business was, we can get a puppy and he can come to work every day. I mean, that sounds amazing, especially if you're a dog person. And we had thought and knew we wanted to get a dog. And so I ended up stepping into the business the beginning of April in 2012. We got married in May of 2012, and Badger was born on July 12th of 2012. We picked Badger up on Labor Day weekend of 2012. And it's really, really interesting because we were on a wait list for a breeder here locally in Minnesota. And we got an email from them saying that a litter of puppies had been born, and there were 5 girls and 1 male. And we were too far down on the list to get the male. And so they asked if we wanted a female. Justin, said, no, I want a male. We'll wait for the next litter. And very shortly after, I can't remember the timeline, but very shortly after, I received another email from them, and they said, surprise, we actually have another litter being born. We didn't realize this mother was actually pregnant, because Badger's dad was coming to the end of, can you call it a career? They were retiring him basically kind of after Badger's litter, or the litters that summer. And so Badger's litter was Badger and 2 females. So he had 2 sisters. And so we were next in line to get the male. And so what I always say is Badger picked us because that was the dog. And so, we brought him to work as a puppy. And he has he's been around people. He had a column in our print newsletter for a while. I think he probably still has a Facebook page. We never got him on Instagram, but he really truly has interacted with so many people over the years. And he's really brought he's brought so much joy to our lives, and I truly believe he's brought joy to the lives of others. And so that's why so many of you have actually walked this journey with us and, really walked alongside. And so I do want to give some backstory. So even if you know the journey, I really would encourage you to stay with me, because there may be parts that I haven't spoken about before. And so Badger went and got groomed in the spring of 2022. And when I picked him up, our groomer said, hey, there's this spot on his leg, and I think it's something that you want to get looked at. And the spot was essentially, if I had to describe it, remembering back, essentially it was the size of a black bean, and it was hard, and it was dark, it was black. And so we took him to our regular vet that we had been seeing. At the time, Badger is about to turn 10. Yeah, 10. And the vet said, if this were my dog, I would be removing it and I would be running pathology. And so that's what we chose to do. So he had that surgery the end of June of 2022. And when he had that surgery, and so it was on one of his front legs, they told us that we don't think we got great margins And when the pathology report came back, the surgeon called me and said, this is what we would call a 10 out of 10, meaning it is fast. This is a fast growing, like the pathology was not good. And so I asked, what are our options? And she said, well, one of your options is to wait and see. And so I said, what does that mean? And she said, well, wait and see if, again, we didn't get all the margins. We got good margins, but we didn't get great margins. And so wait and see, does something come back in the spot where the original growth was removed? She said, nothing may show up again. Like you may be done with this. She said the other option is to, we can refer you to oncology. So a specialty vet for oncology. And quite honestly, at the time, two things really came into our decision to wait and see. And one was, Badger's so healthy. We take really, really good care of him. He was already seeing a chiropractor at the time. He was already getting regular massages at the time. We were already feeding him, very, one of the better, some of the best food that you could give a dog, human grade type food. He had seen a holistic vet on and off over the years for different things. And we weren't currently seeing one, but we were doing things. And the other factor that came into that is I was deep and heavily in training for 29029 because I did that in August of 2022. And so we were in this okay, we're just going to wait and see. And so fast forward, and August comes around and I'm about to do 29029. And what that initial surgery and initial kind of pathology report that came back really sparked in me specifically is Badger's mortality. And I know this intellectually, and because we don't have children, our relationship with our dogs is a little bit different than a lot of people's. And so it really kind of made things real for me. He turned 10 and then this was happening. And so we had talked about getting a second dog. That was the plan. And then life happened. So, 2016, we opened the Transformation Club, and it was fast and furious, and we were running back-to-back challenges, and there was just so much going on in our business and so much growth at that time. And then 2017 into 2018, we sold our house and built our new house and moved. And 2019, we actually lost our cat. And then 2020 hit. And you couldn't find a puppy. There's a lot of people who have COVID dogs. Maybe you are somebody listening, and it was hard to find a puppy. And I was very specific about what I wanted. And so it got me looking, because I'm the researcher. I'm the one that finds the things, and then I bring them to Justin. I'm like, hey, I think we need to do this, or hey, I think we need to look at this. And so we had actually had a member at the club who had recently gotten a dog from this specific breeder in Iowa. And so I had followed them, I think, on social media. I was just kind of looking around things, and I found, so I really wanted a miniature Goldendoodle, and I really wanted a 50-50. So 50% poodle and 50% golden retriever. That is challenging to find. And so when I found the litter, they were going home right around the time that I was doing 29029. So what I told myself was, if I get back from doing 29029 and there are still puppies available in this litter, then I'm going to bring it to Justin. So I get back from doing 29029 and I looked, and there were still puppies available. And Justin and I, on Wednesday, I called the breeder and said, is the website updated? Do you still have these puppies? She said, yes. We went out to a late lunch, early dinner on Friday. We made the decision. We called, we put in our deposit, and we picked Bucky up on Saturday. And why is this so important? This is so important for a couple different reasons. Is one, this, yes, this story is about Badger, and I'm going to share with you all the things that we have done. I am going to share with you some things that we have done differently with Bucky because of our experience with Badger. And this is a story of trusting and following divine timing, because there was just something inside of me that couldn't let go of getting another dog. And had we waited to get another dog, or had we pursued oncology before getting another dog, we would have never gotten another dog. Never in a million years. Because if you've ever gotten a puppy, it is really challenging. If you've ever had a puppy and then you have I guess you could have even called Badger a senior dog at that time, go through multiple surgeries, it was a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And so I really truly believe that like it all worked out the way that it was supposed to work out. So we ended up getting Bucky Labor Day weekend of 2022. Now fast forward, we've got this puppy, and whole nother story, but just a sidebar, like Badger was not thrilled about this. Even though, and you may think this is a little woo-woo, and that's okay, I did an animal communication session with Badger prior to us getting a puppy, and he was like, yep, that would be okay. I'm not going to take care of him, but I will play with him. Like it was a whole thing. And still he was like, what is this thing and why is it coming home with us? And so there was just a lot around just having a puppy in general, and then also how Badger felt about it. And maybe I am giving him a little bit too much credit for his emotions. That could be true too. And that's okay. And so fast forward to October, beginning of October, the first weekend in October. And I did my very first 12-hour walk. And this is relevant to the story because during a 12-hour walk, if you've listened to my episodes, my solo episodes on a 12-hour walk, if you haven't, I would encourage you to do so. I've got some really great insights there. On a 12-hour walk, you walk for 12 hours. You can stop and take breaks and rest and all the things. And no contact. You don't have your phone. You're not listening to anything. You're not listening to music, podcasts, books, nothing. You're not talking to anyone. And so as I was doing my 12-hour walk, Bucky was too little to do any part of it with me. So Justin had actually taken him. He was doing something at the club that morning, and I was walking Badger around our lake. And I remember stopping because Badger had a bunch of burrs that he had stepped in on the side of the path. And I went to remove from his back foot burrs, and I saw another growth that looked very similar to what we had removed the end of June. And so this is really relevant to the story because I had 10 hours left for my mind and my brain to go in so many different directions after seeing that. And so that was really a testament to being in the moment, being intentional about where I was choosing to put my focus, where my attention was, etc. And so that was on Saturday, and Justin took him to our regular vet on Monday, and they immediately said, we need to refer you to oncology. So I started calling different oncology departments, and I was able to get him in. I was able to get him in by the end of the month. So basically I took the first appointment that I could get. So in the meantime, like I said, Badger was already seeing a chiropractor. Badger, in like his historic health challenge prior to his cancer diagnosis was actually skin issues, like allergies, specifically like August would really flare up. And actually taking him to a chiropractor really, really helped that. So his chiropractor had known obviously about the first surgery. So we take him into the chiropractor, and I say, unfortunately, we've got another growth. We're being referred to oncology. And our chiropractor said, you need to call Dr. Deb. And I was like, I have no idea who that is, and I will take whatever information you can give me. So another piece of this story is I talked about divine timing with Bucky and trusting. And I look at how we, like the things that needed to be in place for us to be seeing the chiropractor that we were seeing at the time, because we were referred to that chiropractor by someone who was a member at the club. that person who is a member at the club was referred by one of her friends that was a member at the club, and how that person came to me. Like, it just, I really, truly, like, all of this was orchestrated for us in so many ways, as much as I have not preferred this. And I know, and I truly believe that it was orchestrated so that I could also come onto a platform like this and be able to share it with you. And so I took the information and I called the phone number to make an appointment, and the receptionist answered the phone and said, Pequot Lakes Animal Hospital. And I have no idea where Pequot Lakes is, mind you. And I said, I need to make an appointment with Dr. Deb. And she said, Dr. Deb is on sabbatical and we don't have a return date. And my heart sank. And she said, however, we do have another holistic vet that is filling in for her. Would you like to make an appointment with her? We can see you next week. And I said yes, instantaneously. And then I proceeded to Google and map how far Pequot Lakes was. And I texted Justin and I said, we're going on a road trip, 2.5 hours, to see a holistic vet for Badger. And so many of you know, if you follow along on social media. And so if you're not following me on social media, I give Badger updates every so often on Instagram. So follow me at The Transformation Life. And so every 6 weeks, 6-ish weeks, since October of 2022, I have been driving him to see our holistic vet. Eventually, we are so grateful for Dr. Rachel, who we saw for a couple years. Now we have been seeing Dr. Deb, and it has just been, it's been incredible. And, you know, sometimes people are like, you drive all that way? And I'm like, yeah, it's so worth it. You know, like other people may drive to kids' sporting events or other things. And so for me, that's my version of this. So as all of this is happening, if you listen to my episode back in, gosh, I guess that was June, so just last month, on talking about German new medicine, this is where this really came in for me. So in this process, I was mentoring and learning German new medicine. And so I happened to look up melanoma, because that was the original diagnosis that Badger had. And melanoma is an attack conflict. And so in spring, I think it was the summer of 2021, Badger was actually attacked by a dog that lives right outside of our neighborhood. He wasn't injured in any way, but he was attacked by this dog. And then, so that was first attack. And then the summer, so after he had had his surgery in 2022, he was attacked by that dog again, unfortunately. And again, he wasn't injured in any way, and it was still, it was an attack. And fortunately, Justin was there to handle it and all the things. I think Justin's adrenaline and cortisol, as well as Badger's, was just through the roof. And so that was super unfortunate. And it makes sense, like it was an attack conflict. So again, it's not that like I bring in all of this. And so for me, that was really just it was a lens for us to see things through. Because, you know, people have said this to me and I've questioned this, like, how does Badger, who you take such good care of, he's treated, like I've had humans tell me they would love to come back as my dog. And quite honestly, that is a wonderful compliment. Thank you. And so one of the things that I know about German new medicine is you don't want to potentially trigger that conflict in any way, shape, or form. And so we actually had been walking by, so the dog lives right outside of our neighborhood. We'd actually been walking by that home most every single day. And so one of the things that we did was stop walking by there, because even though Badger never reacted, the dog that attacked him, if he was in the backyard, he was super reactive. If he was in the house, he was super reactive. And so that, you know, I know it's just it may seem a little woo-woo, and yet it definitely is something that I believe, like, I think all of these things have helped. So the question that I often get is like, what is the thing that's helped the most? I don't think it's one thing. I think it has been everything, including things like getting Bucky. So we meet with a holistic vet. We feel really good about what she is what she is doing for him. And here's the lens at which I was looking at this through. So I was looking at this through, like, if this were a human, so if this were me or someone very close to me, or, you know, like a family member, like, how would I approach this? Or how would I use, like, I don't, in my functional health practice, I don't work with people who are actively undergoing treatment for something like cancer. I have worked with many people who have had a previous diagnosis. So I'm like, okay, what's the lens that I would view this as? And the lens would be, how do I support the nervous system? How do I support the gut? How do I support the liver? And along with the nervous system, how do I support things like the adrenals and the thyroid? Because we had also gotten some blood work back that Badger's thyroid was struggling a little bit. And they originally wanted to put him on medication. And that was something that I chose not to do. And so when we went to when we went to oncology, you know, their recommendation was surgery. Like, we have surgery to remove this other growth. So they were going to need to remove his entire toe. And they wanted to do a scar revision where he had the other growth to get greater margins. And then they wanted to check lymph nodes to see if any lymph nodes needed to be removed. So by the time we were able to see oncology initially, go through the pre-op appointment, blood work, all the things. And one of the things that they, I believe at the time, one of the things that they did, this part is a little fuzzy for me, is they did do a chest x-ray, because if things had spread to the chest, it didn't make sense to do surgery. So I think initially we had a chest x-ray was clear. So that was then the next recommendation would be, if you want to move forward with this, would be surgery. So his first initial surgery was scheduled for the very beginning of December of 2022. And so we dropped him off. Unfortunately, you don't get to meet with the surgeon when you drop them off. You drop them off, they take them back, and then, you know, they tell you the surgeon will call you, and then, you know, you can, when they start to come out of anesthesia, etc., you can come pick them up. So we dropped him off, and probably about 60 to 90 minutes later, we received a phone call from the surgeon. And the surgeon said, you know, the team was shaving him down, and we found another growth that was on the same leg of the initial growth, just up a little bit higher. So because of his fur and whatnot, we hadn't seen it. And so he said, we consulted oncology, and you have two options. Well, maybe there was actually three. I guess option number one would be not do the surgery at all. I don't know that that was an option, but that could have been an option. Option two is go ahead with the surgery as planned. So this would have meant scar revision, now removal of a growth, now removal of a lymph node, now removal of a toe, and he was actually getting neutered as well, because at that point he was still intact. Or he said, we can do the scar revision, we can remove this new growth, we can remove the lymph node, and then we can send pathology in, we can see what we're dealing with before we do the other extent of the surgery. And oh, by the way, you have 15 minutes to make this decision. So I don't know about you, if you've ever had to make a decision like that, it can be really challenging. And again, this is also a story of trusting that you are making, we were trusting that we were making the best decision in that moment. And looking back, we did, not necessarily for the reasons that I would have thought that we did. So we went back and forth, because we were like, okay, if we truly believe he's healthy and strong and this is going to be fine, like, why wouldn't we just go through the whole surgery, right? On the flip side, I didn't want to put him through something that he didn't have to go through. And so we chose to do the scar revision, removal of the other growth that they found, not the toe amputation, they removed one lymph node, not two, and kept him intact at that point. So didn't neuter him. And looking back, that was the most appropriate decision, because the recovery from that surgery was so challenging. Actually, the recovery from both surgeries were very challenging. The first one was horribly challenging. Like, a week later, we ended up in the emergency vet with an infection at 10:30 at night on a Friday. Like, it was a whole thing. And so Fast forward, we get through the infection, we get through all the things, and they tell us that we will call you with pathology. And they told us roughly 7 to 14 days. And 7 to 14 days go by, and we're on like day 15 by this point, and we're thinking no news is good news, right? And I'll never forget when we got the call. And fortunately, my husband took the call. And he took the call, and it was from the surgeon. And he said, based on the pathology, this is melanoma that has spread to the lymph nodes. So it's metastatic, and now it's lymphoma as well. So we're dealing with more things. And it was a really aggressive melanoma. And so my husband's one of his first questions is like, what does this mean? What's the prognosis? And the surgeon said, at best, you have 5 to 6 months. I still get emotional. Saying that. And Justin got off the phone and just crumbled, and I crumbled with him. And, we're hugging the dogs because Badger doesn't, and here is the thing. Badger has no idea the diagnosis or the prognosis. And this is one of the major takeaways that I really want you to hear is you can accept a diagnosis without accepting a prognosis. And if you want to hear stories of that and how that is possible, especially for humans, Dr. Joe Dispenza has tons of work on this. There's a book called You Are the Placebo that is phenomenal. And so this is also the beautiful thing about Badger being a dog is he has no idea that he has a diagnosis. No idea. Did he obviously know he was having surgeries and needed to recover from those surgeries and all the things? Absolutely. But he had no idea that he had a diagnosis, much less a prognosis. That is huge. That is huge, huge, huge. So in this time frame, we had started seeing the holistic vet. We were using Western medicine. And this is another huge takeaway is blending. I am so grateful for the surgeries that Badger was able to have. I'm so grateful for the diagnostics that they were able to run in order for us to make the decisions to move ahead with surgeries. And I am so grateful for approaching this in how do I support the immune system? How do I support his body? And so in this time frame, I am very fortunate that I have friends and people that I can go to and that I know have amazing tools, etc. And so with our holistic vet, we started doing homeopathic remedies. And these are all specific to Badger and specific to what she was muscle testing him for, essentially, using a pendulum. So again, I know it's a little woo-woo, and I will tell you that 3 years, we are 3.5 years past the prognosis. So he has outlived his prognosis by 3 years. That is not insignificant. It wasn't 6 months. It wasn't even a year, 3 years. And so I don't care if some of this is woo-woo at all. We've used Chinese herbs. We've used different gut supplements, and I'll get into some of the functional testing because that was also kind of along the journey. That was something that I brought in because I was like, okay, again, how would I approach this when it comes to humans? So inside of that, again, I have some great friends who use some amazing tools. And so one of the things, again, from a nervous system standpoint, I was like, how can we support this animal, this dog? And so I know a lot about, I don't know a lot about I know the frequencies are really helpful. And so we actually invested, and we still use this. I don't use it quite as frequently as I was early on, but I use this. It's called an AO scanner. So it's a frequency scanner for dogs. It plays harmonics for them. So tones are really healing. We found this to be so very helpful, specifically post-surgery. And again, we still use the frequencies today. The other tool that, again, I don't think it's been any individual tool. And when I look at cancer specifically, cancer doesn't like oxygen and it doesn't like blood flow. And so we have a tool called a beamer. And what it does is it increases blood flow and increases oxygenation to cells. So Badger lays on, we use it as well as humans. They actually just came out with a dog model though, I hear. So he uses it 8 minutes in the morning, 8 minutes at night. And we are very, very, very consistent with that. And it's really interesting. And I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day, is we'll say, Badger, let's go do the beamer. And we have it on a certain part of our couch and he jumps up and does it. And it is very, very rare that he jumps off before it's done. And again, this is that inherent, like he knows what's good for him, right? He's not using his analytical mind or his thinking brain. He's actually feeling into his body and knowing that this is really helpful for him. Other than his, so one of the other things, food obviously is a big piece of this too. So we did end up switching his food. So he was eating pet plate. And we did end up switching it to Farmer's Dog simply because it was lower in carbohydrates. So our holistic vet was very, like we want to give him we want to do the lowest carbohydrate diet that we can do, because that's going to not feed those cancerous cells. And we continue, so Badger continues to walk 3 to 5 miles a day, pretty much every day. I mean, the only reason we don't walk is if it's like way below zero. And what we have done and what we have changed for him is instead of like, I don't really take him on, 3 to 4 mile walks at a time, or, sometimes I was, not every day or even every week, but I would take him hiking and go 6-7 miles. We don't do that anymore. We tend to do more frequent, shorter walks. So we'll go for 1 to 2 miles, several times a day. And that seems to be really good. Like that seems to work for him. And so we have kept his activity. Like we have treated him as though he is healthy and strong. And that is another big takeaway, is we tell him every single day, you're my healthy and strong boy. And yes, I do it in my doggy voice. And so we started using all of these tools around the same time and have been really consistent with them. And so we ended up, so even after we got the prognosis, I honestly didn't want to go to this appointment. And we scheduled, and they said, we think you should circle back with oncology to see if there's anything else that they have for you. And I was like, I don't even want to go. I was really distraught, like really distraught. And so we ended up going the end of December to this appointment. And, when like our experience has been like, we don't have an oncologist for Badger. We see oncology and it's whoever is there that day. And then they're talking amongst themselves. So you're seeing the oncology team. So we've actually seen several different doctors over the course of the last 3.5 years. And we got the doctor that I needed that day because he was so gentle with me. He had wonderful bedside manner. He was very, very gifted. And he was just very, very kind about the whole situation and just made me specifically feel much better. And so what he said is surgery is your best tool. And you still have a growth on the toe. And we still want this lymph node that is up from that growth is showing abnormal cells. We would want to remove that and then neuter him because there was some dark, like there weren't gross, but there were dark spots on his scrotum. And so they're like, like at this point, like we want to take everything that could be suspicious. And so he said, I think doing another chest x-ray to inform us has this spread to the chest. And if it hasn't spread to the chest, then, doing another surgery makes more sense, can buy you more time, etc. So we fortunately got a clear chest x-ray. And so we decided to schedule the second surgery. So in January of 2023, Badger had his second surgery. He had his toe amputated and he was neutered and he had a lymph node removed. And shockingly enough, the toe amputation recovery was far easier than the first one. I think part of it was we were more prepared. We had more healing tools that we were using. And so that was also really, really helpful. And so he recovered from that surgery. Again, we continued to use the tools, and I continued to go see the holistic vet, every 6-ish weeks. And the other thing that we did was we started titering for any vaccinations that he was coming up on. So the ones that are required as far as rabies, distemper, those kinds of things, any elective. So I, because I tend to take care of this stuff, we had fully, like, he was getting routine vaccines every single year, up until his initial diagnosis, we found the initial spot. And so we stopped all of that. We titered. He has not had any more vaccines since June of 2022. And that was very intentional because I didn't want to put something into his I didn't want to compromise his immune system in any way, shape, or form. And so, I also I was exposed to a holistic vet who trains health practitioners for animals. And I've been asked, like, why don't you go through that? And maybe at some point it's a not right now for me. And really looking at environmental toxins, looking at, nutrition and food is important, but then also looking at vaccines. And she flat out said, we are over vaccinating these animals. One of the other things that we stopped doing was we stopped treating our lawn. And so we have a lawn that has dandelions. It has, I don't even know what it has, but it just is, because I cannot in good conscience put, even if they say they're organic and whatever, maybe if we weren't in a situation where we had already had a diagnosis, would I be more comfortable with that? I'm just not comfortable with it at this point. And so it just is. And with Bucky, we have given the first round of the essential vaccines, rabies and distemper. We actually spread those out over the course of, he would only get one shot at any given appointment, and we have titered with him. So he has not had any more vaccines, and he is almost 4. We started him out with farmer's dog right away as far as food. And one of the things that we do for both of them, and so fast forward, we were probably maybe a year-ish into the journey, and I was thinking, okay, is there something else that we can do to help support him or kind of see where he's at? And so I brought this up with our holistic vet at the time. And she said, actually, there's this bioenergetic scan that her mom had actually introduced her to, that she had done on her dogs, where you take a swab of their mouth, and then you can either take hair clippings or nail clippings, and you send it in. And again, it's bioenergetic, and it's looking at all the different systems in the body. It's looking at food sensitivities. It's looking at bacteria, parasites. It's looking at different, environmental things. And then it gives you homeopathic remedies based on that to support the system. And so that is something that we have done very consistently with Badger now for probably the last 2.5 years or so. So I do a full scan about every 6 months. And just recently, I've shared this on social media. His most recent scan had actually improved from his previous one. And so I think that has something to do with some of the newer. So since the end of December, since December of last year, we have started with some cancer reprogramming tablets and some cell integrity supplements to really, really, truly support at the cellular level. And I can tell that's making a big difference for him. And it was validated on that bioenergetic scan. And so I do that for him really consistently. And then I do remedy scans in between. And that is giving us the support with liver. That's giving us thyroid support, adrenal support. He's been on different immune support supplements. And so, his supplement regimen and his homeopathic regimen has never it's not stayed consistent. There's the pieces of it have been consistent. So the Chinese herb, the symptom remedy, the homeopathic remedies, the gut support, some of the immune and thyroid support. Like we brought that in and out, some of the liver support. We brought that in and out, but it's never like it is kind of fluid. And I think this is another lesson, you know, for us as humans. Like we want to bring in this support when it's necessary, but just because you start taking something doesn't mean you're necessarily going to stay on it forever. And so that has been a really, really helpful piece. And then I started doing that with Bucky because, you know, it's testing bacteria and parasites and things like that. And, you know, we live next to a path that's very wooded. And so sometimes we're seeing ticks. And so I want to make sure that we are really supporting detoxification. We're supporting, you know, he often is on things like bacteria tox or chem tox or, you know, different things like that. And so I did that with Bucky because I wanted to make sure as dogs, they share a water bowl, you know, they poop in the backyard together, that they're not passing parasites back and forth. And so we started doing that with Bucky too. And that's been really, really helpful. You know, you know, Bucky has his own little personality and his own little things that we're navigating with him, as well. But that has definitely been super, super helpful. So again, to kind of like zoom out and kind of bring this all together for you is it has been a blend of Western medicine and Eastern medicine and holistic medicine. And, you know, the kind of the most recent update on our journey. So in June of 2020, yes, because we're in 2026, so 2024, so about a year and a half after his original all the surgeries and all the things, he has a lymph node underneath his chin that started to grow and get enlarged. So we took a sample of it. They were abnormal cells. We went back to oncology, and our experience was really interesting. So the oncologist, the grad student, took all of our intake, you know, asked questions. And the oncologist comes in and she's like, Badger. And, you know, going to the University of Minnesota and then having a dog named Badger, like Badger kind of like it stands out. And she said, I remember this case because I remember small animal surgery calling oncology and saying, we have this dog and we shaved him down. And like, what is the recommendation we want to give to the owners? And she said, it's interesting, and not that I expect them to. She didn't ask what we were doing. She said, I would give the same prognosis today based on the case. And she said, I don't, kind of like, not in so many words, I don't know how you're here. And she said, honestly, this lymph node is the least of my worries. Like, what happened to the melanoma? Like, was really her question. And so at that time, she said, you know, I think getting a really good understanding of what these abnormal cells are is going to inform us on any, you know, course of action. And she said doing a chest x-ray to see where we're at with that, because if you see spots in the chest, we know things have progressed. And so we did that at that time. Chest x-ray was clear, thank God. And flow cytology came back that it is a very slow growing lymphoma that is very common in older golden retrievers, which Badger is half golden retriever. And so fast forward to present day, that lymph node has started to grow in size. And so as I'm recording this, we are actually headed back to oncology next week to see if the recommendation is still the same or if there is something. Like, my intention with going to the appointment is I want to understand, is there an option that I have that I'm not aware of so that I can make a choice? And so I always want to make sure, like, do I have the information? And that's always my question around, you know, testing and things like that, is like, if this will change my course of action, then I want the information. If it's not going to change my course of action, I don't want the information, because quite honestly, oncology has told us that we should be doing a chest x-ray every 6 months. It's not going to change my course of action, because if something were to start to show up in a chest x-ray, they don't have a recommendation for us or something they can offer us. And so having what we're doing with our holistic vet, knowing what's going on with the chest x-ray, doesn't change our course of action. So I'm not interested. So if we zoom out, again, it's blending the holistic and the Western. I think that has been huge. It is it's really approaching this from a system standpoint and realizing the whole body works together. It has been nutrition. It has been some of these tools to really help support the healing and the blood flow and the oxygenation of the body. It's been supporting the nervous system for sure. And it has been accepting a diagnosis without accepting a prognosis. And it has been really putting our attention and focus on how healthy and strong Badger is. The C word doesn't really come up at all. And again, he's a dog, so he doesn't necessarily know, and we know. And so, Badger, as this episode is coming out, Badger turns 14 on the 12th. So this episode is coming out the day after. And we are still going on adventures. Badger loves R's and W's, if you can guess what those are, walks and rides. We have the routines, and really most importantly is we're present and we're grateful. And that's really truly what this experience has taught me, is to really be present in any given day, because every birthday with Badger feels like such a gift. We didn't know that he would see 11, and he just turned 14, and every day feels like a gift with him. So again, I get emotional talking about this because he truly has brought so much joy. And so what I hope you take away from this is not necessarily like, yes, the things that we have done, maybe the things we've done differently with Bucky, but what I hope you really take away from this is it wasn't really, it has been about the cancer, but it's not really been about the cancer. It's been about love. It's been about choosing hope. It's been about where we have put our attention. It's been about being present and living in gratitude rather than living in fear. It's been about supporting the whole being, whether that is a dog or whether that is a human. And so to wrap all of this up, and thank you for staying with me because I knew this would be a little bit longer of an episode, is if you have ever sent me a message or sent Justin a message asking about Badger, or commented on a post or a story that I have done, or you've prayed for him, or you've cheered him on, or you've simply smiled at a picture or a story that he is in that I have posted, truly, truly thank you. Thank you. You all have been such a part of this journey, and we have so much gratitude for that. Like it really brings me so much appreciation when people ask about him and reach out about him. And I truly believe that every extra day that we have been given is that gift. And so as we have celebrated Badger's 14th birthday, we're not counting statistics. We're counting memories and adventures and sunrises and walks and the ordinary days that I walk downstairs from my office from being on a call or recording a podcast, and I see him curled up on the couch next to his little brother, or the times where we see him and Bucky interacting and playing. And so right now we are celebrating a very special boy, and we're celebrating the reminder that he gives us every single day, that life is meant to be lived one joyful moment at a time. So please make sure that you are subscribed or following the podcast on your favorite platform. And please tell me in the comments, how long have you been following Badger? Like some of you have been following him since we brought him to Fitness Revolution back in the end of August of 2012. And so just truly, truly thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share this. Thank you for wanting me to share this, and thank you for being there on his journey. And so thank you for being here. And I will leave you with this, because this is what we have done, is we've had faith and we've taken action.